story of Snow White. We recently did a video on this channel talking about how people were triggered about the ending of Snow White, but here is one reason why they shouldn't be. Seriously. Because Snow White is not what you think. She didn't actually have a happy ending. And when I saw this theory floating around, I really had to think about it, and when I finally finished ruminating on it, I realized, oh shit, it makes so much sense. I don't see how I didn't see it before. Let's get into this. You see, the story of Snow White is as tragic as they come, almost like Cinderella. Snow White was a princess by birth, and her mother died shortly after childbirth, or after her birth. That's not really certain. Her father remarried a queen that turned out to be a very evil person and a witch, and not long after their marriage, Snow White's beloved father just died suspiciously. Given what happened to Snow White later on in the movie, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the queen probably poisoned her husband so she could have total power. And then when she found out that Snow White was the fairest of them all, she didn't any longer care about someone being around to do her chores. She knew that Snow White would be a candidate to take her place or have some other prince come and whisk her away. She was an orphan, and even still she tried to be happy all the time given her circumstances. See, the queen did not like this at all. So what did the evil queen do? Dress up as an old hag or disguise herself as one, given her magic, went to Snow White and gave her a poisoned apple. I don't know what kind of poison was in there, but it put Snow White in a frickin' coma, knocked her literally on her ass. This is a scene from the end of the movie. It says, so beautiful even in death that the dwarves could not find it in their hearts to bury her. They fashioned a coffin of glass and gold and kept eternal vigil at her side. The prince who had searched far and wide heard of the maiden who slept in the glass coffin, and all the animals were sad. She's in this forest with the petals falling and the deer are putting flowers at her side, and then the prince comes along on his white horse and gives her true love's kiss. A very small peck on the lips. Isn't it romantic?
No, it's not.
You see, the prince is not really there. There was no prince. Snow White lived a very horrible life. This queen made sure of it. She was treated horribly. There was no love. She was lonely and cut off from society. The prince is a figment of her imagination, a manifestation of death. Let's do a play-by-play so we can assess the situation of the movie and why this movie is actually darker than you probably remember. Early on in the movie, Snow White is doing her chores. She's tired. This is probably her life every day. And as a little girl or a young adult, being cut away from everything and everyone, only having a cold stepmother to take care of you that doesn't love you, your parents are dead, your father, who was the last thing that you had, who loved you, was just mysteriously killed, probably for no reason, and it probably seemed odd because he was probably very young. When Snow White is by the well, she sings into it, and that's when the prince hears her and jumps over the wall. As she keeps singing into the well, we can see the point of view from the well. The prince sees her and smiles like a creeper. As she continues staring into the well, eventually he pops his head up and starts singing with her. Of course, she's frightened by this. This prince is not really there. You see, what probably happened is that Snow White was singing into this well and she probably was leaning over a little bit too far, flirting with Death. And Death saw this, and Death is like, ooh, somebody want to die today. So the prince showing up is basically the manifestation of Death. Whether she was thinking about throwing herself in there because of her circumstances or she accidentally slipped, one thing's for sure is that she was either scared when the prince, aka Death, showed up because she was appalled at the thoughts she was having, or she literally almost slipped and realized she could have fallen in. Here's where it gets really dark. She runs away, and the prince is calling back to her saying, please don't go. It's okay. Come back here, please. And then he sings to her. Snow White is up in the castle looking back at him. And at some point after the initial fear, she starts to flirt with the prince, sends a dove that she kissed to go kiss him, and he's singing her this song. Now that I found you, hear what I have to say. One song, I have but one song only for you. One heart tenderly beating, ever entreating, constant and true. One love that has possessed me, one love thrilling through me. I'm getting some Bob Marley vibes. One song, my heart keeps singing, of one love only for you. Now it seems romantic, right? The darkest part about it is the early part of the song where Snow White was singing. Now she could have been singing about an actual prince because she would have had the knowledge about prince and princesses, being that she was of royal blood, but the song could also have a double meaning, and it could mean that she was actually wishing to die. Maybe she realized those thought patterns and she was appalled at what happened if she actually were to die. Maybe she was even flirting with the idea of death when she was over the well and singing that song. And then it's possible that when she slipped, she realized, oh my my god, I'm actually terrified. What if death is scary? Keep in mind that she's an orphan and her parents are both dead. It's possible in those times that she also believed in heaven and hell, and that her parents were probably in heaven. It's possible that she thought that she may see her dad again, and anything else in the afterlife is way better than the life that she was experiencing now on Earth. Here, let's go. Want to do a secret? Promise not to tell. We're standing by a wishing well. Make a wish into the well. It's all you have to do. And if you hear it echoing, your wish will soon come true. Now we know that if you scream into a well, your voice is going to echo. But I interpreted this another way. Either she's leaning so far into it that the echoes are louder, or you're falling down it and you'll be dead soon. Okay, maybe that's a bit morbid. It's possible that when she was singing the song that she probably was thinking about a prince. It says later, I'm wishing for the one that I love to find me today. I'm hoping and dreaming of the nice things you say. I'm wishing for the one I love to find me today. She could be talking about a prince whisking her away, or she could be flirting with the idea of death, but she doesn't want to do it herself. She's just hoping at some point somebody will come and whisk her away. After all, she doesn't know how her parents died. And in those times, and even in today, there are people who believe that when you're dead, it's God's way of taking you to heaven or taking you away from earth. So she's probably thinking, I wonder if whatever took my mother and father can come back and get me too so I can be with them. And if you start to entertain thoughts of death, usually it's not far behind. Death will entertain you back. Death will start to give you little thoughts of how you could do it and how nice it would be and the justification of why you should do that. Because anything is better than the pain that you're suffering with right now. And when you're in that state of mind, that's all you can think about, the pain, and a way to get out of it. I've heard a lot of people say that people are selfish when they want to pass on, and do it themselves, but you have to understand the immense desperation and pain that person is going through for them to even think that. I've been there, that's why I'm so descriptive about it. Growing up in my household wasn't the easiest. And there were times where I felt like Snow White. And I think most people have at one point in their lives entertained the idea. It wouldn't be so bad. It's very quick if you do it the right way with as least amount of suffering as possible. Especially if you feel like no one loves you, you're not even really thinking about that. So it's possible Snow White could have been in this state of mind. We see her sighing before she sat down. I mean, she's singing and smiling all the time, but in this scene when she's washing the stairs, you see that she takes a moment and she takes a deep sigh. She's trying to keep herself in good spirits. She's depressed. She's doing everything in her power to keep singing, to feel better, but in actuality, she's lonely. Think about how big this castle is, and there are no other servants around. She has to do all of this by herself. Her entire life is getting up every day and cleaning the entire castle, never having any friends, never having any fun, never having any love, no hugs, no one to talk to. So like me and most other people, you start talking to yourself or other animals. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie, but at one point the queen hires a huntsman to go and kill Snow White. But he realized that she's just a child and she's sweet and innocent. He's like, I can't do this. So he urges her to just run away and never come back. Go to the woods.
Child, run! Run away! Hide! In the woods, anywhere! Never come back! Now go! 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 Run! Run!
Kind of reminds me of that scene from Bambi with his mother. Run, Bambi!
Bambi, quick, the thicket! Faster, Bambi! Don't look back! Keep running! Keep running!
Oh my god. Yo, I cried. Every time I see that scene, I cry. Oh my god. Remember when Disney used to be awesome? Even though they stole most of their ideas, at least they executed them well. Man, those classics will never die, and then you have these crazy ass people out here trying to ruin this. It's funny how these animated movies have more soul than anything they put out today. Anyway, Snow White does exactly the same thing and runs through the woods, and she realizes how much danger she's in. It's getting dark, she's scared, she sees eyes everywhere. The trees are grabbing at her. I mean, she's terrified. Not only is she terrified because she knows the queen is after her and trying to kill her, but she's also terrified because she's in the woods and everything looks horrifying to her. I can just imagine how freaking scared she is. The poor, poor girl. Not to mention she's never been away from the castle. After all of this mental trauma. She she breaks down and starts crying, almost having a freaking heart attack. Then the animals come. And this is a Disney movie, so this probably would happen in the cartoon, but I find that Disney movies are usually an allegory for everything. So it's possible that because she loves animals, she does the very thing that any child would do. And trust me, I have done this, so I know exactly what she might be thinking. And I have strong vibes that she's an INFP as well. It's a personality type, look it up. As an INFP myself, someone who's introverted, has a crazy imagination, loves animals, is very friendly, we tend to go to someplace else in our minds, especially when we're in situations where we can't get out of. We create parallel worlds in our minds, or friends that we can talk to. I have imaginary friends. I still have imaginary friends. I've not outgrown them. Even though my mom thought I was crazy, I hid that from her. And the point of the matter is, even though I've always had them, even when I didn't need them, I especially needed them when I was going through what I was going through growing up. And they were in the form of animals or characters that I liked, mainly the Land Before Time characters. Sarah is my very best friend, except now she has her Triceratops head in a human body. They evolved. Anyways, for her mind to probably deal with what was going on, she had to imagine this scene right here where animals loved her and were protecting her and she wasn't alone. You see, we like being alone. We don't like other people necessarily, but we don't actually like being alone in our minds. In our minds, we're always with animals or with dragons or imaginary characters or original characters we've created. And as long as we're with them, which are basically facets of our own personality, we're great. So if someone picks on us, we're laughing in a language only we and our imaginary characters can speak at that person and making fun of them. Anyway, after that, we get something else that happens.
Once there was a princess.
Was the princess?
She meets the 7 dwarves, and these dudes straight up almost kill her. Right when they realize it's her, they're like, oh. Now she's asleep in their cottage, and all of these dwarves represent a personality or an emotion. She locks herself in this cottage, and they come into the picture, and when she wakes up, she knows their names exactly. How?
Your little man. Let me guess. I know. You're Doc.
Why, yeah, that's true.
And you're bashful.
Oh.
Now, aside from their names being written on their bed, having seen them, you wouldn't know that about them immediately. So I think that these dwarves were her imaginary friends, and this cottage is basically a version of her mind that she locked herself in. Maybe to help deal with all the trauma of having her stepmother try to kill her, realizing that her stepmother probably killed her father, realizing that she's alone in this forest, and the stepmother might hire other people to kill her. That's probably what's going on. And I completely get it because I could see myself doing that. I have done that, except my worlds are a little bit bigger than a cottage. So all the animals and the dwarves are her personalities. The dwarves are her literal personalities. The doc is the one who's responsible for everything because he's the doc. He fixes her up when she's feeling sad, keeps the others in check. That's why Doc is a leader of the 7 dwarves. And if I had to bet my money on it, I can almost guarantee that Snow White's father probably looked a lot like Doc, wearing those same glasses. It's possible that he had a white beard. It's possible that these dwarves are a manifestation of what her father was like. So they're basically like her little protectors. Notice they're not 7 women. They're 7 male dwarves. They're small enough to not be threatening because it would look weird if she was in a cottage with 7 grown men. She's too innocent for that. And it's not a sexual thing with her. So the men being smaller in her mind equates to them being friendly. Now, this is not me. I don't want anyone to get offended because we're saying that dwarves aren't real men. That's not true. I'm just saying what the symbolism is and how things usually work. It is usually what it is. Usually, biologically, women aren't into men who are ridiculously short. That's not me. That's biology. Just like men aren't usually into women who are ridiculously fat. That's not me. That's biology. We like what we like for a reason. The point of the matter is, there is nothing sensual about her with these dwarves. Later on, she's talking to them about her prince and sings another short song.
Anyone could see that the prince was charming. He was so romantic.
And she's basically singing to her imaginary friends about death. It's manifesting as, oh, Prince Charming came. But what she's probably talking about is her personality is about, look, I was just entertaining the fact that this is so cool. Like, imagine. And you know what? I feel this. It may seem creepy to some people, but when I was a Christian, I entertained this too. My mom and I used to talk about heaven and how wonderful it would be to die. Like, I know, some sick shit. Because in our religion, we were taught that you should want to be with God, that you shouldn't be afraid of death, only if you die in sin. So when we weren't sinning actively, because because, you know, it's impossible to not do that. We fantasized about heaven, and if we died, would we finally get to meet God? Sounds like the alien cult where they all drank the Kool-Aid and then, you know, abducted themselves, which was so sad. Or here's something more specific. The prince is actually the Prince of Peace, or Jesus. The prince just mysteriously finds her all of a sudden on a pale white horse. He may not just mean death in and of itself, but Jesus Christ. And when you think about it that way, it really fits the description. Because just like my mom and I and many Christians do, we fantasize about when Jesus will come and take us away and rapture us up with him. The only friend that she would have other than her imaginary friends is Christ himself. You may be wondering, well, how would she have known about that if her stepmother is a freaking witch? Well, remember, Snow White was living with her father for a while before he remarried, so she knew what religion was. It's possible that because he was a king, he wasn't just living alone in this castle by himself. He probably had many servants and people to teach Snow White religion and to teach her different things that royal families would teach their kids. But when the queen took over, she didn't want anyone seeing all of her evil and what she was doing. Further proof of this is that witches are not looked upon kindly in Christianity, so nobody would stand for the queen actually performing spells and being evil. She couldn't treat Snow White the way she wanted or have complete control over her unless everybody else left. Also, a lot of people probably had loyalty to the king, and the queen didn't want that around. She probably killed every single one of them or threatened a lot of them, and they eventually left. Don't worry, I'm getting there. So I'm about to drop the bomb on why I think the theory is true that the prince represents death. My theory on top of it is that he represents Jesus. Also, remember at the time that these movies were made, most people were Christians or Catholic, and also why the animals and the dwarves represent Snow White's personality in her world. Okay, so here's the thing. The prince met her and was flirting with her, right? If this was like Cinderella and he was really there, why did he whisk her away? He's a prince. He could choose whoever he wants. It's not like Snow White's not royalty, and they would have known that Snow White is royalty. It's not like people don't know that. They understand that the stepmother was remarried to the king, and everyone probably speculated that she killed the king, but there's no proof of it. So they know that Snow White is the daughter of the king. The prince would have known that. His parents would have known that. And notice how he's called the prince, but not the king, and we never know who his father and mother is. Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace, not the king, because God's the king. He already has that spot reserved. But when she flirted with the prince, he never came back to see her, at least not to my knowledge, until later on. He knew exactly where she was, and it's not like everything happened the day after this and the day after that. I'm pretty sure there was a few days in between, but it's almost like he was a figment of her imagination. Then after the poison apple is eaten that the stepmother gave her in disguise, it says at the end of the movie, so beautiful, even in death, that the dwarves could not find it in their hearts to bury her. This is the last like 5 minutes of the movie. Notice, they say so beautiful, even in death. This is not the story of Sleeping Beauty. They didn't say she was asleep. They said that she was dead. Dead as a doornail. She was in a freaking coffin. Now, it's possible the poison that the stepmother gave her could have put her into a coma, but it's poison. She didn't get any medical assistance, so either she's in a coma and she's dying, or she's sleeping and she's dying. But one thing is for sure is that when you eat freaking poison, you die. She was laying up in that coffin the whole time. Nobody treated her, and the dwarves couldn't, because you know why? They were figments of her imagination. They're not real. Why did they go and get help? They're not real. They're her personality. They fashioned a coffin of glass and gold and kept eternal vigil at her side. I remember when I was very sick and feverish, and the one thing that gave me comfort was knowing that Sarah, Ducky, and Littlefoot were right there with me. I understand they're not real, but they're my imaginary friends and the closest people to me. Figments of my imagination. Parts of myself that I've spent most of my life with. And it gave me comfort. Even if I didn't want anyone else physically in the room, I was happy to have them there. And they were just as sad as these dwarves looked near the end of the movie that I was suffering. Now take a look at what's happening. The tree in the background. The leaves are falling. That's autumn. Then winter. And then spring. I don't think time is passing by this much. I think that's what Snow White is perceiving in her mind or in her subconscious as she's dying. Because you'll notice, whenever you're dreaming, time seems to go basically the same speed it goes in real life. When you wake up and realize you've only been dreaming for freaking 5 minutes, and you're like, what? I just lived an entire year on another planet with another family. How the hell was I only asleep for 5 minutes? Your brain processes things differently when it's asleep. I used to joke around and say that, when we dream, we probably go to other realities. And that's the only way we can travel. At least like like that. Your brain kind of works the same way when you're dying. And then we see Snow White right here, like it focused on her head first, the shot. So we know that she's probably seeing all of this. And it zooms out from her mind, almost like we're getting an establishing shot of her mind. The light is beaming on her in that one spot, and her imaginary friends, the dwarves, are all around her. The animals are all around her, all sad. Then the prince comes out of nowhere, like no servants, no people to help him find people. He goes to her side singing, and he's obviously sad because of how she suffered, but he doesn't at all look shocked that she's dead. He gives her a kiss, and then she wakes up shortly after, much like the kiss of death. Now, aside from the Mothya meeting, the kiss of death originated from the action of someone's life ending, an action or event that causes failure, the direct cause of the end of something or someone. But I know in the religious sphere, the kiss of death is when someone draws their last breath. As some religions say, it is a death in which the image that is offered is that God, so to speak, inhales into God's self the last breath of the person as they exhale, which is why people say that God took that person. The angels took him, because you can literally hear their last breath as they go. God or Christ or whoever kissed them and took their life. Now I want you to remember that as the prince just kissed her, look at what happens right afterwards. All her friends are sad and they're like, oh no. Why is it right as she was kissed? Everyone's like, God damn it, she's gone. It's like there was a sense of finality to it because the prince kissed her, almost like they saw her take her last breath or heard her take her last breath. Now mind you, all of this that's happening around is just a manifestation of what's happening. I think this is still just in her mind. Right after she wakes up and she's like, I've been asleep for a long time. She's not rigid, and her personality or her friends are all happy. When she looks up and sees the prince right next to her, she says, oh my God. Notice they never kiss. In Disney movies, usually they do that. Now, I know this is an old movie, but I was looking back at it and I realized this is not a romantic relationship. This is more of a fatherly, friendly relationship. Almost like she is being ushered into the arms of Christ. I'm not lying. A lot of this shit had symbolism, had religious symbolism. It's not me. Look back a lot of old movies. A lot of them had depictions of religion. So here's where we put the nail in the proverbial coffin, no pun intended. Her friends are all happy as soon as she gets up and she's alive again, but she's not really alive. I think that they're rejoicing because now she's being carried off. This is when her breath is being taken. This is when she is dying. And she's making peace with the fact that she's dead. She's sad because she's gonna leave. They're sad because she's gonna leave. But then they realize, wow, now that you're finally dying, this is what you wanted. You're gonna be with your parents now. You're gonna go to that castle in the sky, aka heaven. That's what they call the castle in the sky. And you're gonna go away from this awful place where the queen can't ever reach you again or your family. And usually when people are happy being carried off into the light, it's because they know that life is gonna be better than the life they had on Earth. He never once kisses her. Never once. He puts her on his pale white horse and she kisses all of her friends goodbye. The prince takes the horse and rides off across the hill. And what do you see at the end of the movie? We're thinking, oh, he's gonna take her to his castle, you know, they're gonna live happily ever after, they're gonna kiss, but they never do that. He's not on the horse with her, and it looks as though he doesn't have far to walk, because in the very next scene, we see what was supposed to be so obvious to us, but as kids, we never even realized it. The prince, on his pale white horse, takes Snow White and stops right there. Look at the clouds. Look at the prince and Snow White. They're waiting on something. They look up to the sky and the clouds form into a castle in the fucking sky. She's dead. He's taking her to heaven. The prince was never real. Not in our sense. He was Jesus. He was the spiritual manifestation of death and love, and he took her away from this life and brought her to heaven. So they didn't live happily ever after on Earth. The happily ever after is the after fucking life. Jesus Christ. No pun intended with that either. I don't know how I didn't realize this, and I'm not the first one to have come up with the theory of the death, but I did add a little bit after, because I'm like, okay, death carries her into heaven. Death is associated with that too, but I feel like the prince, I'm like, what's the significance of the prince? Okay, the prince could be death, and she's flirting with death, but you're not really in love with death. You don't sing about death the way that you would sing about Jesus Christ. At least in the religion, that's how it is. She's happy because now she finally gets to be with Christ, her Prince of Peace, and her parents. Yep. So, childhood ruined? Well, I mean, by religious standards, she still got her happy ending. As a matter of fact, by religious standards, she got a happier ending than she would have gotten on Earth. Because now she's with the perfect prince, except that she can't fuck him, you know, because that'd be weird. Anyways, what do you guys think about this? Whew, when I look back over at the highlights of this movie, I realized how much symbolism was in there. I didn't even... Wow, it's actually much darker than I initially thought. And I don't know why the movie hits me harder now that I know that. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.